morning. So today I have the founder of a retail marketing technology today with us, which was sold to Google in 2012. Joshua is very big on mobile products, which include health tech, fintech, and everything around the lines of technology. Let's welcome Joshua on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom, where he will tell us about his company, why he founded his own company, and what his company currently does. Hi, Joshua. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, though if we talk about my company, it is old news. That was like 9 years ago that we sold it. And about a year and a half after Google bought it, they shut it down. So that is, which is fine. Hey, once the check clears, it's their company to do whatever they want with. I will never be sad about selling my company to them.
Well, that's a positive way to look at it. So Joshua, what are you up to these days and currently?
Yeah, so I spent a couple of years at Google, but what I really love is early stage product management and product leadership. And when I say early stage, like I've discovered over the years, once a company gets a little bigger than like 100 people, I start to feel kind of itchy. So I mean like really, really early stage stuff. I've led product at a company called GasBuddy, which is a consumer mobile company. I led product for Catalina Marketing's digital promotion product. And that was kind of the 900-pound gorilla that I had started my company to compete against. So it was kind of cool to go work for them. I led product at a very early stage enterprise B2B SaaS company called Alyce here in Boston. And now I'm leading product at a fast-growing consumer fintech. I call it a fintech for good company in New York City called Brigit, that provides financial wellness and financial support tools to everyday Americans, right? People who aren't rich.
Wow. So just curious, as in like why 100 people? As in like, well, what's the reasoning behind? Do you not like stability? Are you just like, okay, I need to do something else? What's the reasoning behind it?
I'm not quite sure. My wife tells me that it's a personal failing. I think there's a level of like interpersonal complexity. I like to kind of know all the people and how everybody relates. And once you get to some size, I feel uncomfortable with that. And frankly, I'm not a good manager with larger teams and larger organizations. Like this is my own personal limitations. And, you know, it took enough being unsuccessful. I think like most of us, most of my life has been kind of a continual series of failures, some big and some small, with some very occasional successes. And I just realized the pattern. That larger companies, and again, my larger cutoff is pretty small, are places where I tend to struggle. Okay. And, you know, you put me in a big company, and I just have no idea what to do with myself.
So how did you manage to work at Google then?
I sold the company to them. That was it. There's no way they ever would have hired me otherwise. I'm definitely not Google material, not smart enough, not good enough looking.
I think you're being too humble, Joshua, because I mean, considering you've led a product at quite big companies that are growing fast, I think you are on the road to success. So that sounds absolutely amazing. I also wasn't
doing product at Google. I was doing biz dev and sales, so a little bit of a different beast.
Okay, that doesn't make it any less cooler, which is
well,
amazing.
Thank you. It was pretty cool.
Of course. So Joshua, because you've had such an amazing career in leading products at a lot of companies, I'd love to hear what makes an individual successful, for example, when they're applying for roles in the product space.
Yeah. I think, first of all, every company is going to have their own rubric. So I can talk about the way that we hire. And normally I think we do a really successful job. And by we, I mean the company I'm at and the places I've worked in the past. It's something that I think a lot about. But my model isn't going to be the same as everybody else's model. And there's lots of great ways to hire lots of great product managers. But it all came from like my realization fairly early on that there's a lot more really impressive product managers looking for jobs than I'm able to hire, right? I can't hire every single great person who comes and applies or who I track down. So it's forced us to get really thoughtful about what do we think is going to make a successful candidate. So our process starts before we even talk to anybody. We put, hours into developing our job description. I don't want to post a job until I have a specific job description that I think does a really, really good job of describing who our ideal candidate is, the kinds of work they're going to be doing, the kinds of skills, abilities, and experiences I'm looking for. And to the extent there are like personality traits that I think will go really well. That goes into. So sometimes this can be, I'm looking for people who have done a particular kind of product management. So maybe in a certain industry, right? Like consumer mobile or enterprise, or physical hardware, right? Or ad tech or sales tech or fintech or whatever that happens to be. Sometimes I'm looking for people who have done product management in a certain kind of a team, right? So maybe the classic Marty Kagan, Silicon Valley product group, aligned, accountable, durable, cross-functional product teams where you have a product manager and engineers and QA and design and data science and whomever else sitting together to solve problems together. Sometimes in some organizations, those people get really frustrated. And I'm looking for somebody who's done, the more classic product owner work, right? Maybe somebody who's worked in a large enterprise organization where they're expected to, have their safe agile certification. And really their job is to work Jira boards, which is a totally fine thing to do, but it's a different profile of person. People, different experience, different maturities of companies. And then we distill that job description, right, down into what are the 2, maybe 3 distinguishing qualities that we think the great candidate for this job distinguishes them from all the other great candidates. Because again, there's tons of great product managers. Not everyone will be great in our organization. And we think about that a lot. And until we can say that, we don't really understand what the job is about. But once we can, that's when we start recruiting, both by advertising the role and by posting it, but also by doing a lot of working our networks, and looking through other affinity networks too. One kind of rule of thumb that I heard early on was you should be able to put your users and your product managers in the same room, mingle them up, and not be able to tell who is who. In the US at least, right, it's often, right, that product managers look a lot like me, right? They're white, they're male, they went to an elite school, and that's great. I like myself, but it doesn't make for a very interesting product team. It doesn't make for the kind of diverse set of experiences that, particularly at a consumer app where I am right now, is really, really important, right? So the next step is going out and finding people, right? You're not going to find people who don't look like you if you don't work at it. So we work really, really hard to recruit a diverse group. And then we start the interview process. And again, we have a process there. We take our job description and turn that into a series of behavioral questions, right? In the form of tell me about a time when. And every question that we ask is planned ahead. Every question ties back to a specific line or multiple lines on the job description. And we have a rubric for evaluating the answers afterwards. And they tend to feel like really easy questions. Like we don't do trick questions, right? None of that, how many golf balls fit inside of a 747, or why are manhole covers round, or, please write an algorithm, or sell me a pen, or any stupid thing like that. We want to avoid questions you can practice, right? On my bookshelf behind me, you probably can't see it, I have a whole set of books about how to interview successfully for product manager jobs. I've looked for a job. I read all those books. They're incredibly effective. But I feel like if I can practice it, we're not really learning about the candidate. And we take a candidate through that process. But again, we have a really clear idea up front about what a successful candidate is going to be. So by the time somebody gets towards the end of the process, we really know if they're going to make the cut or not. Or at least if there's somebody we could hire. And then we often have the hard decision of, amongst these 3 or 4 or 5 great candidates, who gets the offer. And that's a bummer that we can't make the offer to everybody. Okay. That was a lot of me talking. Was that the kind of thing you're hoping to hear?
Yes, that was the exact thing I was hoping to hear. Awesome. Because I love the step-by-step approach that you took and everything. And it clearly shows how thoughtful you guys are when it comes to actually recruiting people, because I think a lot of companies usually just put on their job boards and a lot of people don't even hear back from the companies themselves and they just ghost on them, which is heartbreaking enough, because I think putting yourself out there in the job market is hard enough. But when you actually hear from companies, I think it just gives you a sense of hope. And I think it's amazing how you guys look at it from a step-by-step approach to make sure that you guys find people that actually fit your company. Well, Joshua, we like to keep things short. Our time is up. It was an absolute pleasure having you as a guest and learning about your company, about how you sold your company, then you worked at Google, a lot of things specifically, and it absolutely sounds amazing. And I loved the thoughtful approach that you guys take when it comes to hiring.
Fantastic.
So thank you so much.
Well, good luck to all your listeners. This is an amazing time to be looking for a job. Everybody is looking for candidates, whether you're a product manager or a product designer or an engineer. There are so many openings out there right now, which is great. And I wish everybody luck.
Well, thank you so much.